The movie opens with Abilene being interviewed. Abilene states that she was born in the year 1911 at Chickasaw County. Abilene has always known that she will grow up to be a maid because her mother was a maid and her grandmother was a house slave. The interviewer asks her if she ever has a dream of becoming something else, and she was speechless. Abilene Clark narrates her story in 1963. Abilene is an African-American domestic worker in Mississippi, Jackson to be precise. In her entire career, she has raised 17 white kids. She currently works for a white socialite named Elizabeth Lee Folt for 6 days a week, making 95 cents an hour and a total of $182 a month. Abilene is responsible for cooking, cleaning, washing, ironing, and grocery shopping. Abilene's most important job is raising Elizabeth's 2-year-old daughter named May Mobley. May even recognizes Abilene more than she does her own mother because Abilene seems to be the baby's first in all circumstances. Abilene even teaches May a form of self-inspirational quote saying how kind and important she is. Elizabeth as a person does not care about her daughter emotionally, so Abilene fills all the necessary roles for Elizabeth. Abilene's best friend, Minnie Jackson, works for Mrs. Walters. In Jackson, the white women have a group in which they all come together and discuss issues regarding the blacks living amongst them. This group is called Socialite. They aren't to be called mayonnaise because they'll spoil if left out in the sun. The women's Socialite group consists of majority of the white women in Jackson. Mrs. Walters' daughter, Hilly Holbrook, is the leader of the group. She's the ghostly figure with a red wig. Hilly happens to be a very manipulative human in nature. Eugenia Phelan, or popularly called Skeeter, is a mutual friend of Elizabeth and Hilly. Skeeter is an aspiring writer who recently graduated Ole Miss and was rejected by a New York publishing house, which is why she had to come back home. Skeeter, by the way, is not yet married and does not have a boyfriend. Skeeter eventually gets a job at the local publishing house by sweet-mouthing the editor-in-chief. She is tasked with writing a housekeeping column. It is at this job that Skeeter gets to know about the rapid-growing systemic racism and the demeaning treatment of maids in the city, including Hilly's insistence on installing separate bathrooms for maids, which she wants them to put in building code. Hilly even demanded that Skeeter puts this initiative of hers in her column. Honestly, I don't think I'd want to share a bathroom with these nasty pasty-looking heifers either, but that's besides the point. At dinner, Skeeter's mother, Charlotte, informs her that the family's maid, Constantine, quit her job to be with her family. Skeeter finds so much difficulty in believing what her mother said about Constantine. This reason, coupled with the experiences she has had since she started her new job, Skeeter decides to write a book by having several interviews with different maids and get them to share their experiences. Skeeter approaches Abilene to help her with her story and get 5 other maids to support and also tell their own stories. But Abilene turns Skeeter down, afraid of what might happen to her if Elizabeth finds out about it. One night, a tornado hits Jackson, leading to the death of 18 people. This consists of 10 white and 8 black people. That same night, Hilly sacks Minnie for defiantly and unapologetically using an indoor bathroom despite Hilly's stern warnings. Minnie packs her belongings and leaves Mrs. Walters' house while it is still raining. Some days later, Hilly intentionally renders Minnie unemployable by telling every other housewives in the area that Minnie stole from her. This act of Hilly's made it impossible for Minnie's teenage daughter to continue school, thereby leading her to quit school and take a job as a maid. Minnie's husband comes home and beats her for getting fired. Abilene goes to church on Sunday and is moved by the pastor's sermon of showing love by sacrificing yourself for others irrespective of how they treat you. Getting home, Abilene calls Skeeter and informs her that she has decided to help her with her story. Skeeter and Abilene meet, and Abilene tells Skeeter her story starting from the first child she raised when she was just 14 years old. Celia Foote is a housewife ostracized by the socialites. When Abilene overhears that Celia is seeking for a maid, she recommends Minnie to Celia. Minnie goes to Celia for an interview. Celia owns a large, though inherited, house in Madison, and she has very little cooking skills. Happy to finally be in the league with the other housewives, Celia gratefully hires Minnie, without informing her husband Johnny, who happens to be Hilly's former love crush. Celia and Minnie gets talking, and Minnie gets to know that Celia was already pregnant before getting engaged with Johnny, though she eventually had a miscarriage. They both talk more about Hilly's jealousy of Celia and Celia's unrequited love for Johnny. Celia helps Minnie take care of a black eye Minnie's husband has given her due to her previous job termination. Abilene and Skeeter keep progressing with the story. On one of their sessions, Minnie walks in on them and finds out what had been going on. At first, Minnie becomes upset for what Abilene is doing, but in the long run, She also sees reason to tell her side of the story. Therefore, Minnie joins Abilene for the interview. Skeeter's editor, Elaine Stein, tells her that she will need the story of more than 2 maids if she is going to run her story, but the fear of a violent retribution or job loss is preventing other maids from coming forward with their stories. On the verge of giving up the story, Abilene tells Skeeter about how she is struggling with the death of her only son who died because of the then-foreman's nonchalant attitude to the boy's accident on the job. Skeeter and Minnie consoles Abilene. Skeeter then assures her that they are not giving up. That night, Skeeter writes a piece in the Junior League newsletter on the separate but equal bathrooms based on Hilly's instructions. But Skeeter rather embarrasses Hilly by having a misprint in the wordings, thereby resulting in people dumping their toilets on her yard. Hilly refuses to loan money to her new maid, Medgar Evers, who asks for $75 in order to send her twin sons to college at the same time. Nowadays, college costs way over $70,000 a year. One day, while cleaning, May finds a missing ring under the sofa and sells it, an action for which she is violently arrested when Hilly finds out. This incident, coupled with the fact that Medgar Evers, the only black man fighting for their freedom, was assassinated, inspires more maids to come forward and tell Skeeter their stories. Skeeter alongside Abilene and Minnie are worried that the stories told by the maids might be easily recognized by the socialites involved and might raise some eyebrows. But Minnie assures them that she has a leverage they can use. Minnie then reveals what she did to Hilly after Hilly fired her. Minnie went to Hilly's house to give Hilly her famous chocolate pie, but unknowingly to Hilly, Minnie baked her own feces into the pie. After Hilly had taken 2 slices, Minnie informed her that she had just eaten her shit. Mrs. Walters laughed really hard, and for this reason Hilly forced her mother into a nursing home for laughing at her during the incident. Abilene asks Skeeter when she will publish the story, and Skeeter informs her that there is one more story to tell, after which she will send the story by mail to her editor in New York. Skeeter confronts her mother once again about Constantine's departure. Charlotte confesses that during a luncheon of Daughters of America held at her home, she had to fire Constantine because Rachel, Constantine's daughter, disobeyed her order to enter the house except she goes through the kitchen. Rachel then moved her mother to Chicago, where Constantine eventually died, heartbroken by Charlotte's behavior. This news sends Skeeter running from the room amid tears and sadness of heart. Skeeter puts together all the stories she wrote and sends it through mail to New York. The story becomes published and it is titled TheHelp, which they indicated is written by Anonymous. The story gets embraced by all. It is widely read by black and white communities of Jackson. Skeeter gets the proceeds of the story, which she divides among the maids whose stories she wrote. The maids get an equivalent of what they would have been paid for working for several weeks, and they are to expect more. Skeeter's boyfriend, Stuart, is certain that she wrote the book, for which he breaks up with her on the basis that her book is disruptive. Girl, you don't need that Temu version of Zac Efron anyway. Celia writes a check to a Junior League cause and makes it out to 2-Slice Hilly after Minnie reveals to her what she did with the pie. Greatly panicked, Hilly drives down to Skeeter's house and threatens to sue her for libel, but she gives up on the issue when Skeeter reminds her that she will have to admit that she did eat the pie with Minnie's shit. Charlotte helps her daughter by confronting Hilly, informing her that she knows about the pie also, and orders Hilly to get off her property. Skeeter and Charlotte decide to reconcile, after which Charlotte tells Skeeter that they are going shopping in order to be ready for her new position as junior editor at Hopper & Row Publishing, a position offered to her by Elaine Stein for a job well done on the story. Minnie later got to know that Johnny was aware that she had been working in his house. Johnny appreciates Minnie for her help towards Celia because he notices that Celia has been better since the day Minnie arrived. Johnny then tells Minnie that she has permanent job security because of her compassion for Celia and excellent cooking skills. With the assurance of never having to leave her job, Minnie makes a move to leave her abusive husband, and she takes along her children. At church, all members honor Abilene for her leadership role in the publication of their story. In fact, town members sign books for Skeeter and Abilene. Abilene and Minnie persuade Skeeter to take the job offer in New York because she burned lots of bridges by publishing their stories. Not giving up, Hilly decides to seek revenge. Hilly pressures Elizabeth to fire Abilene under the context of stealing silverware. Abilene stands up to Hilly and lashes her with words. Hilly storms out in tears, and Elizabeth orders Abilene to leave. Abilene bids farewell to Elizabeth's daughter, May. Abilene pleads with Elizabeth to love her daughter and be available for her when she leaves. May rushes to the window as Abilene walks out of the house. May starts hitting the window pane and crying, calling on Abilene to not go. Seeing her daughter's tearful response to Abilene's departure, Elizabeth cries bitterly. As she is walking away from the house, Abilene smiles and reflects on the events that have been happening all her life. She retires from domestic work and then plans her new future as a writer. There's some controversy to this movie, and a lot of the black actresses have spoken out against the film now. The film follows a lot of old black tropes and glorifies the white savior in Skeeter, even though this movie shines light to the mistreatment of black maids back then. Do you think it deserves the criticism? Let me know your thoughts.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.